So Kyle had to leave. He had a servo go out on his drive motor and it wasn't welding correctly and boring correctly. So he's going to come back later. It's probably going to be a week before he gets the new servo. He got this one hole done here. Pin's good and tight in that. So just going to make a short video and show you what I've been up to. Been working on a long version. I probably will get that done and have it out Saturday night or Sunday morning for you. So we got the sprocket off, and in the video you'll see that what I did the first time and it didn't work is I used the rosebud and I got it too hot and it heated up the splines on the hub here and it wouldn't come out. So what I did is I left it overnight, come back out, and this time we got a propane burner and we went around the outside of the sprocket where the teeth are, and then just inside where the arms are that pull on the sprocket. And we got the outside diameter up to 200, and then we shot the hub in here and it was 150. And Jake took the sledgehammer and it just took one bang and it popped out against the nut. A lot of people said that it was never going to come off with the nut on. Well, you undo the nut here on these threads and you leave about 1/8 of an inch gap, because if you take the nut off, that thing's going to go across the yard into the truck and it's going to hurt you bad if you're anywhere near it. So you leave that nut on. Now what I did is I went and got a different tool. That's the tool you push it on with. And so I took the nut off, screwed it on, left my 1/8 of an inch gap, and then we just took some pieces between the ram and that one. That way it was more stable instead of having all those separate pieces in there. Anyway, it popped right off. Everything came off. So the sprocket's here. It's finally cooled off. It's been sitting here a couple hours. One of the worst things you can do is heat this and then put it on, because then you're never going to get it off. So the seals, that's the inside one right there. I had a lot of people tell me I needed to use CRC or WD-40. Those splines do not rust because there's oil inside here, and there's going to be oil on this side because your duocone seal goes in here. So there's no chance of this rusting, and penetrate's not going to do you a bit of good. So I've taken the retainer out in here, and it's an aluminum piece, sacrificial piece, so that you don't ruin the ham cover. This is called the ham cover. And a D9 final drive is different than a D8, D7, or anything. You can actually undo the ham cover bolts and take the whole assembly off as a unit with the sprocket on it if you want. But this hub is a giant planetary inside here with 3 big gears on it, and then it goes around what they call the ham gear inside here. And then there's another great big gear that comes, that is the bull gear that drives off the pinion, and then there's a hub that comes off of that with the gears. It's a sun gear, runs around the planetaries. So it's way different than any other type of final drive. So I know what I'm doing. Not a complete idiot here, but I did call my buddy Dean Schatz. He's taken off a zillion of these, and I asked him what his method was for heating them, and he told him he uses the propane and goes around the outside. It's been a long time since I've taken one off, but Jeff wins. I got it off. So I need one more O-ring that goes inside this retainer and seals inside here, and my dealer has that in stock, so Jake has gone to get that. And then tomorrow's Saturday, I'll get that all cleaned up, get the new seals put in there, and hopefully we'll get that sprocket pressed back on. So These are what Caterpillar calls a duocone seal, and this is called a toric ring, and it goes around this seal, and then you push it in. And you have to be very careful with these surfaces. These are a very fine, highly finished surface. You cannot have one little piece of grit, nothing in there. Those have to be absolutely clean. And to get these in, you take alcohol and you lube these up with alcohol. And then there's a special tool that goes around here and pushes on that ring, and it goes in there's a slight tapered groove that these go into and seal. But these allow that seal to move a little bit. And they seal right here, and then the rubber seals also. And that's called a dual cone. Best seal in the world for a final drive. Beats a lip seal all to heck. So I've still got some milky oil coming out of here. I changed this last year when you saw me fix the sprocket segments that were loose. I changed the oil, and then I put diesel fuel in it, and I drove it for about I think it was an eighth of a mile or so to get to the low boy. And then I drained that out, and then I refilled it with clean oil. But as you can see, it's still milky in there, and that oil is going to be all over in here. So I'm going to probably going to have to flush this a couple times to get it clean. But hopefully that's going to solve my water ingress problem, is put these new seals on. So these are all of my sprocket tools, and we were trying to find a combination that worked. And we were using this one here, and then this piece here on the end of it, and it's just too much wobble. And out of all this stuff, I didn't have the actual D9 tools, and that's why I used that other threaded on. So when I get ready to go back on, what you do is you screw this piece that's threaded onto the hub threads right here, and we've taped these up. And when you work on these, you've got to tape these up to protect the threads, because if you mess these up, you're not going to get that nut on, and you'll be filing threads trying to fix it. So you'll screw this on here, and then I've got to get an adapter made. I got to go to a machine shop, and in the end of this is a great big hole, and I don't seem to have the adapter to go into that. And so I'll have one made, and it screws into that, and then on the other end it'll screw onto the ram there. And then I've got a great big piece that goes over top of that tool and presses on the sprocket, and then your ram is going to be pulling on these threads while the other end of it is pushing on the sprocket. And I think the book said you go 45 tons, but usually what I've always done is I run that up to the maximum amount of pressure, and then you take a sledgehammer and you bang on each side of that sprocket, and when the gauge stops falling, you're done. Then you can let it off, put this giant nut on here, and I think that's supposed to torque down to about 1,400 foot-pounds, and then you're done. Other than you got to put the outboard bearing on, which is this, and that bearing goes on that planetary hub, and that's what supports that. And then the small bearing goes on the dead axle, and there's a nut on that, and you have to set the preload on that correctly. Anyway, that's what supports all that. And you get all that on, get the cover on, adjust it up, and we're finished. Hey, look, my blocks are still holding up. So anyway, I will have a video out showing how we did all this, and when we popped it off, you'll get to see all that. You'll get to see Kyle doing his line boring over there. So you guys have an awesome weekend, and I'll see you Saturday or Sunday.